Hi kids, Heidi here. So I was processing this Calvin Klein sheath dress, which is a great color block, and I noticed that on the back, the seam is starting to let go from the waistband on both sides. So those little threads were what caught my attention. So I'm going to fix it. Okay, the first step in that process of repair is to turn the dress inside out. For the most part, most clothing construction happens inside out, or what sewers call right sides together. And then I noticed something interesting. This is the front of the dress that a repair was already made. See the black thread there? It was all sewn with white, and then someone sewed with black thread. They did not trim their threads. My mother would have been disappointed in that result, but I'm going to turn it over and have a look at the back. Okay, here now we're looking at the back of the dress, but we can't exactly see that seam that we're talking about that's letting go. We have to peek under here. And again, we see some of that black stitching. So they've already made a repair, but there's still some areas that have let go. So see that where the black stitching ends, that whole area is open. And on this side, see where the gap in the stitching is? So I'm going to use white thread to match what was done originally. And I'm going to pick out the black stuff and do it properly. And then I'll show you when I'm at the sewing machine. Okay, before I get too far along, I wanted to show you the tool I'll be using to take out those black stitches. And that is this lovely seam ripper. This is a kind of a more expensive one. It's just really sturdy and beautiful. And the blade, there's a, see where the little throat next to that red dot, there's a little tiny blade there to cut thread. And this is a seam ripper for removing seams that you don't want there anymore. It's also great for taking off buttons if you're going to replace them or tighten them up. And you can spend as little as $1 on them, or you can spend $4 like I did on this one. It has like a safety cap somewhere. But yeah, that's a seam ripper. And I'll remove some stitches now. So you can either remove stitches from the top by sliding the blade underneath and then cutting it, or you can find where two things are stitched together and slit up along the seam. But this has been serged. See this overcast stitch? That was done with the serger to bind the edges, so I can't get at the seam other than from the top. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I've removed all those black stitches. So we have one area that's all open on the right there, and then a little bit of stitching, and then another open area, and then the stitching starts up again right about where my pin is. And I'm going to overlap this little middle area, but there I'm just going to stop and overlap those stitches with the existing ones. Let's see what it looks like from the other side before we stitch. Okay, here's the other side. Remember I told you there were two areas that were open and one that I was going to override. So I'll start there on the right, pretty close to the end, and sew across. I'll overlap that center section that's still sewn. I'll do that gap, and then I'll end at, you see the back side of my pin, I'll end over there so there's no gaps. And then I will do the same over on this side, but we just have that one little tiny piece that's open. Okay, so here we are now at the sewing machine, and I have installed a special needle that is for knits. Otherwise, it could snag or catch the thread down in the bobbin case if it doesn't have a special, usually they're like a ballpoint needle. I've got the needle lined up on the previous stitching, and I've finagled it back as far as I can get so that I'm in the area that already has stitching. And I've got the presser foot down, so now I'm just going to take a few small stitches following that line, and then I'm going to reverse so that I don't have to tie a knot. And I'm going to very slowly follow that line. And then I'm going to sew right over that area that hadn't come unstitched. So you'll see many people use a sewing machine at much higher speeds, and I would too if I was in open country. But when I'm trying to ease this around a corner and follow a particular specific stitching line, it pays to go slow. So now I've overlapped the area where the previous stitching is still there. Maybe I'll go one more. And I'm going to reverse. Then I don't have to tie knots in my threads because I've overlapped the stitches like 3 times. So, should we turn it over and see how it looks on the other side? Okay, let's have a look. The repairs are done. There's a little pucker there that I'm not real happy with, so I'm going to see if I can hand sew a stitch back there to hide that. And I've got 2 threads I have to pull out. But that's the hole. That was the easier to fix. And then we have this one, which was all along here, and then all along here. So I'm pretty happy. And if anything shows when I'm done, I'll disclose it. But otherwise, I think that it turned out pretty well. Okay, one last look. I think I fixed the pucker to my satisfaction, and I got rid of those threads that were poking out. I just need to pull them back from the other side and snip them off. So yeah, pleased with it. Now we'll list it and see if we can sell it.